Hey, Amie.
Yeah, Juan.
Give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amie Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You are listening or watching Baseball Shangri-La. If you are listening to us on the audio portion, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Here's your homework assignment. Help spread the word. Rate us, write us a review. Help let people know about Baseball Shangri-La. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you are following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. Amie, I did it again.
Sorry, I had to take myself off mute so I didn't accidentally laugh at you.
I did it again. All right. This is for those of you, if you're watching us on YouTube, this is officially the beginning of season 2 for us. We are starting season 2. So that way, if you see episode 1, I don't want you guys to get confused because we were just talking about our 100th episode on our last episode. And now we're back to 1. Well, we're back to 1 because this is season 2. But what happened was, Amie, I literally was hovering over our theme song. I don't know how it got to the countdown. I really don't. So obviously, once we get to the fact that, we start making money on this show, we can hire someone specifically to be in charge of the credit because it
Oh, you
is
got jokes today.
this is the first I did it again. I just can't yeah, so again, just for clarification purposes, the theme song has not changed. I just don't know how to handle buttons. I don't
I mean,
know.
it's fine. It's fine. I'm just glad it mutes us while the theme song is playing because I audibly said, "Oh no."
Not only am I no, you didn't say, "Oh no." You looked at me like this idiot. It's like,
I did
how can
no.
this
I
guy
did
here
say it
we go.
on my
I
side. I
saw
said,
the
"Oh
disappointment
no."
in your face. I saw how you judged and you judged me hard there, and I think your eyes were hurting from how hard you were judging me.
I
But
will I will let you know how much of my copay you need to take over when they have to surgically unroll my eyes. It's fine. It's fine.
a thousand pardons because I don't know how to handle buttons on here. Amy, how was your weekend? ¿Cómo estás?
It was good. I mean, I think we were going into this episode like, "Oh man, there hasn't been too much news," and then all of a sudden, all the news after this weekend. How was yours?
It was fantastic. And of course, yeah, you're absolutely right. We at the time we are recording this, there was some breaking news that we're going to get into. So before we do that, let's start the show with a pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. Amy, before we get to the I don't know if you have any comment at the comments corner that you do you have any comments that you want to address from the comments corner?
I'm just double checking right now. We got some really thoughtful responses to the Cam Newton post. At Tim Motley 2100 was just sharing his views on like the NBA versus the MLB and kind of what that looked like. And then we just got a lot of congratulations for our 100th episode and happy New Year from everybody. So it's always great hearing from you guys. I think it was David wants a taco. Wished happy New Year to John and Annie. So always good things from our comments corner.
That's right. Okay, so before we start the show, I need the thumb of judgment, Amy. Do we have the thumb of judgment?
Oh man, you are.
I I
Yes.
I need a decision on this. So I was at the brewery this weekend and I was just picking up food. I wasn't hanging out there. And so
Oh, you're not that's not like your clubhouse like mine?
it's not
Oh.
my clubhouse, but we do go our fair share there to the point where some of the waiters know us, right, and they recognize. And there's one guy in particular. He's been a really good waiter, and so I'm sitting there picking up food, and he saw me, and he came up to me, and he handed me a iced tea because he knows my wife loves it iced tea,
And
and
he
what
said,
he
"Here you go, John."
no, the thing is he's I guess in charge of brewing the iced tea. So sometimes if we go late at night, he brews a lot and he doesn't want it to go to waste. So he gives my wife like extra iced tea to take home. So he saw me waiting there and he came up to me and he handed me an iced tea and he said, "For your wife." So this is what I need the thumb of judgment on. Should I be a little like, is he trying to put the moves on my wife? Or should I just be, oh, that was a very kind gesture. Thank you for thinking of her.
Whoa, tone the machismo down, sir. It's just iced tea.
No, this is what I'm just saying. This is why I need the thumb of judgment.
I'm giving a thumbs up to the waiter because good for him for being kind and thoughtful. You are getting a thumbs down for thinking the worst of that poor gentleman.
Well, don't I get points for at least being somewhat jealous? If I wasn't jealous, wouldn't that mean that, I didn't care?
That's what you need therapy for. And
wow.
no.
Wow.
That's not necessarily a healthy emotion. And
tell me how you really feel, Dr. Cuevas.
There are trained professionals that can help you with that. You can love your wife and not have to worry about somebody giving her iced tea.
Okay. All right. The thumb of judgment has spoken, ladies and gentlemen. If anybody disagrees with the thumb of judgment, you guys let me know. Was this guy, putting on the moves on my wife, even though my wife wasn't there? No, she wasn't there. I look, my initial reaction was
he was
like
being
yours.
Thoughtful?
Exactly. I was like, oh, that was really nice of him. And then I got home and I gave it to her and I was like, wait a minute. This dude just gave her I was like, is he trying to put the moves on?
Maybe he's trying to put the moves on you. Maybe you're attractive.
No,
I don't know.
I've been told many times that people, I get offended by this because they just say that I can't pull it off. But I guess there are some men that you can question their sexuality and be like, well, is he or isn't he? But when it comes to me, people go, no, you're clearly straight. And it's usually because I dress like Adam Sandler, because they say I have no fashion sense. So,
I mean, I have a really good therapist you can call.
Wow. All right. So we're starting off the new season with Juan's cry for help. Juan clearly needs help, and Dr. Cuevas is going to try to find a way. But thank you.
Take the iced tea.
Exactly. Thank you to the thumb of judgment. And for those of you, as I said, feel free. Am I like Dr. Cuevas said? Is it just my machismo? Is it just the curse of the machismo that I need? I'm a toxico. Is that what it is? I'm a toxico.
In this economy, take the free iced tea.
Yeah, that's true. That's another way of looking at it. You're right. I am a toxico. All right. I'm working on it, guys. I'm working. New Year's resolution, be less toxico. So, all right. So we were talking about breaking news. Amie, do you want to let us know about the breaking news?
Nah. We're good. No, I'm just kidding.
There's nothing to talk. So at the time we are recording this is Monday afternoon, and right literally before we were going to record, there was some news that broke. Amie?
There was a little bit of a kerfuffle. Juan was sending me some of the last minute stories he wanted to add. And then I noticed that across, Instagram, Twitter, everybody's talking about Gavin Lux potentially being traded to the Reds. So Jeff Passan is the one who's reporting it. For all intents and purposes, I mean, the Dodgers don't usually weigh in until, a couple days later when things are official. But it's Jeff Passan said that the Cincinnati Reds are finalizing a deal to acquire infielder Gavin Lux. And essentially it's coming down to maybe a competitive balance round A pick, number 7, and then an outfield prospect in the minors, Mike Sirota. So Gavin's, as for all that we've been told that he's going to be at second base this year, it's not going to be in LA.
Look, drink everybody. What did I say? In previous episodes, I had said, look, the 40-man roster.
You just did it again.
The 40-man roster is, well, maybe it's good for me to drink water because I'm such a toxico. Get the toxins out.
Cleanse it out. Let's cleanse it out.
The toxins out.
I can get an egg out of the fridge right now.
Look, I did it again. So this is one of the things where math was going to be a big part of the assignment here for the Dodgers because of that 40-man roster being full. And if they wanted to make any more additions, they were going to have to start making some decisions about, who we're going to be, because they can't move anybody to the 60-day yet. So in terms of how are they going to make room to make additions, And what we said is if they start making moves on the 40-man roster, that's going to be a sign that there's something to come. So,
Ooh.
there were reports that when Devin Williams the airbender got traded to the Yankees, that Gavin Lux was included in trade talk over the weekend. I don't know if you saw this, Amie, but I had seen reports that the Mariners were preparing a package to trade for Gavin Lux, that the Yankees were interested in trading for Gavin Lux. And before we went on the air, Jim Bowden, I don't know if you saw this, but Jim Bowden had tweeted out that there's still an opportunity that the Reds might end up flipping Gavin Lux to the Yankees. And
All of this just I'm it's a bummer that he's leaving because obviously he was a piece of the team from last year that made it to the World Series. But it's also good to see that his value is up because that has been a concern over the last couple of years of the injured year, coming back, having a little bit of a rough start, moving from shortstop to second to try to counter that. And at least his value is up. So if he was going to be traded, it's not just, you know, going to, like the White Sox, like Por Miguel Vargas.
look, Dodger fans drank everybody. Dodger fans
Oh
are
my gosh, I was not prepared.
Dodger fans are consistent, if anything, right? And we've seen this, and I'm sure it's going to happen because if you look at Gavin Lux's second half numbers, he was starting to play better. I would not be surprised at all if he ends up playing for the Reds or if he ends up getting moved to another team, if he ends up having a really good offensive season, putting up numbers. And we saw it already. People wanted to run Walker Buehler out of town. And now when Walker Buehler's gone, I'm going to miss Walker Buehler. Gavin Lux was another dude that I don't know about you, Amie, I saw a lot of people wanted to run Gavin Lux out of town. I'm curious if once they see him start hitting, if they're going to go, I can't believe we traded Gavin Lux.
Well,
Overall,
we do know that there's a portion of the fan base that will continue to rewrite history, and unfortunately there's nothing that we can do about that. Some people have a short memory, some people have a long memory. So, I mean, I think that's why I try to remain neutral, especially when it comes to these players, because I don't know what it's like to be in their shoes. It's, as we've heard from multiple players, hitting is hard, you know, making sure that you're defensively up and able and not injured. It's grinding to be a baseball player. So try to give them all some grace.
I think there's a lot to this move because the Dodgers did have a lot of infielders, and we were trying to figure out how are all of these infielders going to fit. I think probably the person that you're going to get the most from if you trade him is going to be Gavin Lux. The interesting thing is if it is there's two parts of this that I want to address. I'm going to start first with Mike Sirota. So Mike Sirota, the Dodgers drafted him in 2021 out of high school, but he chose to go to college. So there's a reason I think they traded for Sirota. I think they've had this kid on their radar and they wanted him. And if anything, Friedman is, he likes his people. So that's one aspect of this trade. Now, the fact that they got a draft pick out of it, they're going to have 2 draft picks. This is why I think something that doesn't get talked about enough with the Dodgers front office. They're in the playoffs every year. They just won the World Series. They are picking late every single time. And in order to continue the success of this organization, they need to have a healthy farm system so not only they can, plug in holes when they need depth, but also when they make trades in the, late in the season.
Which is what we talked about earlier last season on the podcast was, we see a lot of development with the pitching side, but being able to bring in some of those infield or outfield pieces, that's been a little bit of a gap that they need to fill.
Look, there's just many ways to look at it. And so when everybody sits there initially goes, we traded Gavin Lux, and it's like, who did we get? Mike Sirota and a draft pick? I look, 2 draft picks, drank. 2 draft picks. I'm really not trying to do this on purpose. You're right. I need therapy not only to deal with the fact that I'm a toxico, but also to understand why
I didn't say you were a toxico. I'm just saying maybe a little bit of your machismo could be toned down a bit.
That's shouts out to Razor Ramon, everybody. I think it's one of those things where they're playing the long game like the Dodgers always play the long game. For them to have 2 draft picks now, but not only this, all right, if they have this young kid, this young outfielder going into does that mean some other outfielders that they have? And because we're going to get to this later when we talk about the math of the 40-man roster, are there maybe some outfielders that are already on the in the system for the Dodgers? Does Sirota maybe force them to make some moves elsewhere? So that's in the actual trade. That's my thoughts on the actual trade. The fact that Gavin Lux is going to be able to, I don't know if this is accurate, but it feels like this, Amie. Not maybe have to look over his shoulder so much. It
I was just
seems
not having to play in the shadows, even though like he has a spot, but he's always having to be worried, like you said, look over his shoulder, but like, okay, when's the other shoe gonna drop? They gave me second. They said I'm gonna have it all season, but am I really gonna have it all season? That is the I don't want to call it a downside for the Dodgers, but like because of the depth, you either have to buy into the platoon system or, maybe when you go somewhere else, you do get to shine a little bit more because not every team plays their players the way that we do. So,
absolutely, and it's one of those things you hear this at work in terms it's not important for you. You have to prove that you are an asset to your job, right? And so if you can do multiple things or you can do things that maybe other coworkers can't do, there's value, right? And if you look at Gavin Lux right now seemed like a guy who could only play second base. We saw, I mean, they put tape out in center field when they did the adventure of him playing in the outfield. He's only can hit from the left side. So it does seem the Dodgers love to have flexibility. And it seems like Gavin Lux wasn't able to give them that kind of flexibility. So I do think that hurt his value in the Dodgers organization. That doesn't mean that other teams aren't going to value what Gavin Lux brings to them.
that and coming off an injury year, just like you said earlier with Walker Buehler. I feel like sometimes baseball moves too fast where it's like, well, all right, he's off the injured list. He should be better by now, where it's like it's going to take some time to acclimate on the field. That's going to translate to the numbers like we saw that he put up in the first half. Probably not his best numbers. He would like to do better, but again, you've got to get back into the routine of it. He was off for a whole year. Same with Walker Buehler. It's going to take some time to get back into the flow no matter how much you practiced in the off season or how much rehab you did on any part of your body. It's still going to take a little bit of work. And I think that's what, because baseball moves so fast, it's like, okay, well, we need you to hurry up and be better now.
Yeah. So I think the issue with Gavin Lux, it forced the Dodgers' hand, and I think what forced the Dodgers' hand is the Dodgers made a signing. Amie, you want to give us an update on who the signing was?
Yeah, we were talking about moves and starting to make room on the roster. I'm like, wow, we buried the lead here. So I've heard his name pronounced Hyeseong Kim. So pronunciation wise, I hope we're not killing it. Hyeseong Kim,
You are
Hyeseong Kim.
correct. It's
I've
Hyeseong.
heard it that way. If you're reading it phonetically, it looks like hi, but I don't want to
It is
butcher
Hay.
somebody's
It is
name
Hay.
because yeah. So Hyeseong Kim, he's a 25-year-old. He's from the KBO, so the Korean baseball organization. He's played the last 8 years in Korea, 2 of those with the Nexon Heroes, and then 6 of those with the Kaiwoom Heroes. He's got signed to a 3-year, $12.5 million deal. He's got a 2-year club option for 2028 and 29. Obviously, there did need to be a corresponding move made because when we get into our next topic, that person already took the last spot on the 40-man roster. So Diego Cartaya was DFA'd to make room for Hyeseong Kim. But from everything that I was reading about him, he seems to be a pretty amazing player. We've got Brandon Gomes saying he's fast on the base paths. He's a double plus runner, good defender at multiple spots. They played against him in Korea last year when they were there for the Seoul series. So they already had eyes on him before that. And then getting to see him play live in games just really added to that. So by the time he posted in early December, he was somebody that had caught their interest. So we actually signed him right before the deadline. He had to be signed by 5 p.m. what was that, Friday, before his posting period was over.
Yeah, and this is a guy, when we were talking about value, he can play 3 positions. He can play second base, he can play shortstop. Actually, he can play more than 3 positions because he's played third base and he's played in the outfield.
In left field.
And again, when that signing took place, you were kind of wondering, okay, I was actually wondering, I was talking about the wrong Kim. So when I was talking about, because there was a lot of, when it initially broke, let's get it out of the way,
When
Amie.
you messaged me, it was like, no, not that Kim.
Exactly. So when it originally broke, I did hear some people, we got Hyeseong
Kim.
Hyeseong Kim, and I'm just like, no, it's not that one. Oh, look, in the end, I think we have to, you have to see how it plays out. But my initial thoughts were, I was like, that infield's getting really crowded, and where are they gonna fit all these people? And so clearly he gives them more flexibility. Now, am I wrong, Amie? Is he left-handed or is he a switch hitter?
He's a left-handed hitter.
He's a left-handed hitter. So again, if you're Gavin Lux and you saw that news, you're like, okay, so he's left-handed and he can play multiple positions.
And he's played the last 3 years at third base, gotten a Golden Glove for that. And then prior to that, he had a Gold Glove in 2021 for playing shortstop. So he's not like this. He's just not an average player. Like, he's coming over. He's played in more than 950 games. I was looking at some of the stats. Last year, he had 75 RBI, 11 home runs, which the RBI was a career high for him. He's also in the last 7 seasons, he's stolen at least 20 bases. And then in 2021, he was the stolen base leader with 46 out of 50 attempts. So this guy, like, it sounds like he does it all, plays the infield, plays multiple spots. He's a great, an excellent base runner. So at this point, just an asset.
Exactly, Amie. And that's what it is, because if he can replicate those numbers, that's a huge plus. I think that's it. And that's the beauty of signing someone like that, because there is no pressure that he has to be a huge superstar. He can be a role player and just deliver when they need him to, because you got the other superstars on this team.
And this just bolsters their international image. We have a bunch of players from Japan, a lot of them from, Central, South America. Now we've got, Korean players. So it's just adding to this multicultural group that the Dodgers are curating.
So that makes me, so you mentioned that in order to bring Kim on, they had to make a corresponding move, and that move was Diego Cartaya. And it just brings us, for those of you Dodger fans, if you go way back, I wonder if this name means anything.
Wait, hold on.
Yes, let's go to the Wayback Machine and see if this means anything to you. This name, Billy Ashley. Billy Ashley was a prospect that you would hear a lot in the late 80s, early 90s in the Dodgers. He was going to be the next big thing, right? A big home run hitter. And the Billy Ashley thing never happened. Whenever I hear people talk about Diego Cartaya, that's who I think of. I think of Billy Ashley. Diego Cartaya was a name that we heard a lot of. He was supposed to be the next big thing. And it just never happened for the guy. Whenever he got moved up in the minor leagues, he struggled. And Amie, for me, I hate to use Diego Cartaya as the example, but this is, for me, the reason why. Trade the prospects and get proven assets to win now, because they're prospects and you don't know. Even though, like, I feel, yes, there's the Yordan Alvarez's of the world. There's other people that have been in the Dodger system that have become stars on other teams. So I'm not going to say that Andrew Friedman has a perfect track record when it comes to prospects. He has missed on some, but in the long run, even the ones he kept and they left, Corey Seager, Cody Bellinger, they got what they got out of them.
Mhm.
and they still have found ways. The system works. They have found ways to replenish it. They have found ways to continue the success.
Well,
So
like kind of against the prospect hugging is also you've made the point. We've heard it, all across social media. Some of these guys, the core pieces of the team, they're only going to be young for so long. So we need to win now while they're at their peak. And holding on to some of these players when you could be trading for assets right now, maybe a little bit more proven players. I mean, that does play a part in it, I think.
there's other organizations that maybe try to do what the Dodgers do, and they're just not successful at it. The Dodgers are doing it, and for me, like I said, trade the prospects, man. Get proven people that can, because you're right. That's what it is, Amy. It's about winning now. And if there's a lot of talk about dynasty, we talked about on this show about legacy. It does feel like the Dodgers are in a win now, and I'm all for it. Let's do it.
And you
Um,
don't want these guys to languish either. Like you have the Michael Bushes that have gone on to do something. We had Pepio, he came up for that one season. He's off pitching elsewhere. It just like there's names that we're always going to recognize when we see them on other teams, Josiah Gray, things like that. But you also don't want them languishing in the system because it is a long slog in the minors to finally make it up to the show. And if we can get something out of it and they can go play every day on a team, it's kind of the log jam that we have with the rest of the catchers, which we're going to get into when we talk about the 40-man roster. Like some of these guys have been in the system. I mean, Diego Cartaya has been in there for 5 seasons, granted moving up through each of those years, but still, if you're thinking about what it takes to get to the show, 5 years is still a long time.
yeah. So as we speak right now with the Gavin Lux deal, the Dodgers have 39 people on their 40-man roster. Okay. Now, you would think, okay, well, they can go ahead and sign somebody. In particular, the deadline is approaching for a guy that we hear about. Let's do our obligatory Roki Sasaki mention,
Oh
Amy.
man, I wasn't thinking of him. Go ahead.
I know
Do
you
it.
were, and I want to get to that. I know who you're thinking about, but I want to get to that. So I believe the deadline is January 15th on
No, January 15th is when he is available.
Okay.
And then he has, I think, till like the 27th or whatnot to and it's January 15th because that's when the international signing period opens. He was posted in December, and then he has until I think like the end of January-ish, before that 45-day window closes.
Okay. So there are, let's say they don't sign anybody and they want to go ahead and sign Roki. Well, or Roki chooses them, then they don't have to do anything. But there are still some other names out there. We've hearing reports that maybe the Dodgers need to add another reliever. But this is, we're going to talk about, and by the way, this is a perfect plug because the guy that I want to bring up to talk about, you interviewed and you recently posted that interview on social media. So please go to Amie's social media page so you guys can see her interview with Kike Hernandez. But all signs point to, okay, you got rid of Lux. Does this mean now you can sign Kike? I want your initial thoughts on that, Amie.
That's the hope, honestly, from my perspective. As we all know, he's my favorite player. He will bolster the outfield, so he can always run out there and platoon out on that side. He can bolster the infield, so if anybody needs a break, we saw him play first, second, third, third, and shortstop. I was going to say third and fourth, which would not work around the diamond.
Let Kike catch. Let Kike catch.
I almost wore that shirt today because
There.
maybe I'll wear that next week. But he adds a lot more depth. And then, as we've already talked about before, you've got that postseason bat. And I think with people like, we're going to talk about Teoscar, but him coming back, having, just that culture that the Dodgers are breeding in the clubhouse and making sure that you can continue that, because I think you need to have that fun atmosphere and those things that tie people together, have that glue. And I think Kike is one of those people.
Okay, Amie, let's look at the 40-man roster. All right. Let's say they don't sign Roki. Okay. Let's say they do sign Kike now, right? That's going to put them at the 40-man roster. And then when we get to Roki, they're going to have to make another move in order to make room for Roki. So this is what I want to talk about. So let's look at the 40-man roster right now for the Dodgers. So let's focus right now on the infielders and the outfielders, only because let's see how Kike will fit in this spot. So in
Well,
terms of
and right now you've got Freeman at first. You've
yes,
got, well, second is open. I assume Kim will probably take that spot.
right.
You've got Betts at shortstop. You've got Muncy at third. Brandon Gomes just said in the presser again that we'll get to in a second that Teoscar is going to be your everyday right fielder. You've got Conforto, who's going to be your everyday left fielder, and then you've got Edman, who'd be playing center. So you've kind of got a logjam out in center field as well, and you've got Rojas, who can back Betts at shortstop.
There you go. So you covered right there the infield. You look at the outfield, you covered them also. But in terms of the outfield, here are three names that you didn't mention that are currently on the 40-man roster. And that is James Outman, Andy Pages, and then the guy we're probably going to spend some time talking about, Chris Taylor. When I mentioned Mike Sirota, and having Mike Sirota now in the Dodgers farm system, I'm looking at James Outman. I think James Outman right now is unfortunately probably feeling pressure.
Is Mike Sirota ready to come up at this point?
I'm
sure
know.
Outman's feeling the pressure regardless, because if you've got a logjam out there and you've got somebody waiting in the wings, even in somebody like Kike, who are you going to take, Outman or,
Right. So when I'm looking at candidates, if let's say, they do sign Kike, because Kike is a guy who can play in the outfield, again, it's that flexibility that the Dodgers love. And if you have to make a 40-man in the move on the 40-man roster to sign Roki Sasaki, then I think these are the names that you're going to be looking at, unless, and I will cover the pitchers if you want, but I think James Outman is somebody who's on that list. And I think, honestly, he's on that list to get traded. I think maybe he'll be on the way out. Or here's the other option, Amie, Chris Taylor. I have to believe that the Dodgers maybe they have been doing this all along. What? Did I cut you off?
No. So the three people that you mentioned, Outman, Pages, and Taylor, those were the three log jams in my mind as we've been going over this, kind of getting ready for the show. Pages has kind of proven himself, at least in his freshman year out.
Yeah, exactly.
So sophomore year, after people have tape on him, that remains to be seen. Hopefully he can
exhibit James Outman. We saw what happened with James Outman.
And it's not just James Outman, because I don't want it to feel like we're coming after him, because he is a good baseball player. It's just that sophomore slump when everybody has finally seen you and they know how to attack you. It's that adjustment that needs to be made. And unfortunately, because of the depth with the Dodgers, it wasn't like Outman had the time to figure it out. They just moved somebody else up into that spot. So he didn't have the luxury of time on his side. So I want to give him.
And it's not that we're out for him, Amie.
No.
I don't think so. But it does.
We are not out for Outman.
Exactly. We're not out for Outman. But I do think it is a combination of performance, but it's also a numbers game. Because, again, if you're looking strictly at position players, I think those, because we just went over the infielders, I don't think you're going to let any of those guys go.
No.
And in terms of the outfield, like I said, James Outman, but Chris Taylor.
He's the Outman is the likeliest one to get moved. The only reason I just had my little diatribe about Outman is I feel like on this show we try to give these guys grace. Just out in social media, sometimes that doesn't always happen. So I want to give him his due. But he's the most likely in my mind because of the position that he's in. Pages has kind of proved himself. We still need to see what happens in his sophomore year. Taylor, we have the challenge though of him having $15 million on his contract. So is
it 15 million? I thought it was 13 million.
So I saw it reported as 13 million, but his contract was 4 years at 60 million. So I don't know where they're getting 13.
He might have gotten more money in the earlier years.
Possibly. I thought it was broken out evenly, maybe not. It's over 10 million is owed to him.
Yes.
So that will be accurate. Jose Ayala, don't get us on that, because I've also heard 15 million floated prior to some of the articles this weekend. So
Yeah, I've
Without
seen
checking
13.
spot track or
And that's
whatever.
where I got it from. I got it from Spot Track, was 13 million for this year.
Okay. Well, and they're a reliable source. So 13, possibly more million, whatever it is somebody going to want to either pick that up, pick up a portion of it? Are the Dodgers willing to eat it? As much as Taylor would seem the obvious choice for me to move, he has the contract that I think is that's the doorstop in that potential like trade placement, etc.
Well, it's interesting how you just painted that, Amy, because I do think in terms of a trade, perhaps James Outman has more value. You may be able to get something of value with James Outman being traded. With Chris Taylor, as loyal listener to the show, my compadre said, if the Dodgers would be willing to pick up half of that, because this is Chris Taylor's last year. He has a club option for 2026, and obviously the Dodgers are not going to pick up that club option.
We don't know though, because they just picked up a club option on Austin Barnes, and with as many catchers as they had in the system, some people didn't think that was going to be a possibility.
True, but I
So
do
I'm just
think
saying you never know.
no, that's fair, but I also think that Austin Barnes has some other things to offer that you really can't apply to Chris Taylor. In particular, Austin Barnes having a very good relationship with a Clayton Kershaw,
Mhm.
and maybe it's not just Kershaw, maybe there
And
are other
he does call
pitchers.
a good game.
Exactly. Maybe there are other pitchers on that roster that really enjoy throwing to Austin Barnes. But as my compadre posed to me, he said if the Dodgers were willing to pay half of that, whether it's $7 million, $8 million, depending on whether it's 13 million or 15 million that he's owed, if the Dodgers were willing to do that, would that make it easier to trade Chris Taylor? That way you keep James Outman for depth in
Or
case,
another trade.
for injuries, because you do have to, at least with the Dodgers, I think you have to factor in injuries. That
Mhm,
I mean, even the freak injuries like what happened to Mookie, last year,
mhm.
you have to have at least some depth to be able to get through a regular season.
And I think Chris Taylor, if you can do that, if you're willing to eat half of it and trade him, he still does have value for other teams. It's almost like these guys have like a dual value system. Like because of the depth with the Dodgers, I don't want to say that their value is diminished, but if they go to another team, like we were just talking about, even with Lux, they're going to shine even more where they're in amongst superstars at this point. So, you have one value with the Dodgers, which is good, but you might have even better value with another team where you can actually contribute and produce on a regular basis. Because he only played in 87 games last year.
Well, that's what we're going to find out if Chris Taylor does have any other value. Because this is not the NBA in the sense it's an expiring contract. I don't think that plays as much in Major League Baseball. But I have to believe that during this whole offseason, that's what the Dodgers have been trying to do, is try to unload Chris Taylor. And again, this is not a critical, being critical of Chris Taylor, because
You're
we've talked
talking about the numbers, not the person.
about this before, in the sense the guy was hitting 50 and he ended up at the Mendoza line. So
202.
at the end of the season, he was showing signs of coming out of it, right? And I did mention before in previous episodes that if you do start with him on the roster this season, I think he's going to have a short leash. The issue with Chris Taylor is that he takes up a roster spot. And he
Mhm.
takes up a roster spot in these kind of situations where, okay, right now we're at 39 with this Gavin Lux trade. You sign Kike, and I want to get into the Roki thing a little later when we get into another topic on the show, because I do think that maybe this Roki thing, we're going to get into it when it finally happens, when he chooses whatever this team is. But what's happening down south in Califas, I think right now is very important to the Dodgers, and in particular, its pursuit of Roki Sasaki. So, look, I get that we just focused on it, but if you look at the pitching side of things, Amy, there is some flexibility there also when you look at the 40-man roster, in the sense of the Dodgers could maybe move some pitchers in the 40-man. This name, I want to throw it out to you. This is a name. First of all, I just want to. I'm going to read off some names here because some of these guys are injured. So I'm sure once you can do the 60-day, these guys are going to get moved. But look, Anthony Banda, I think is staying. I think he's a part of this bullpen. So is Ryan Brazier. I think another guy who I think may have earned himself a spot in this bullpen is Ben Casparius. What he ended up doing in the playoffs, I think has really bought him an opportunity to get a serious look at spring training in terms of maybe making that opening day roster. Jack Dreyer is a name that I think is, yeah, he's a rookie. So that's on the border. Nick Frasso, I believe, is still hurt.
He's
so
on the IL, also a rookie.
Right. So Tyler Glass
on the 40-man roster, but probably
Yeah.
eventually on the
but
IL.
he's hurt, so there may be some movement with Frasso. I also feel like they say Tyler Glass now is going to be ready for opening for next season. So for this season coming up, so we'll see. Tony Gonsolin, I don't think is an option. I think Tony Gonsolin's going to be in that rotation.
Oh yeah,
to at least
like
start
not
the
an
season.
option. I'm like, oh no, I think he's there. River
What I
Ryan
was referring to is an option to
shift around.
DFA, or move off of the 40-man roster.
Well, and River Ryan is, I believe, still injured.
Yes,
I don't know
River
how
Ryan is
quickly he'll
another
be back.
injury
Sheehan.
candidate. Brewstar is an
Mhm.
injury candidate. This is the name that I want to get your opinion on. Michael Grove. Michael Grove is a name that other Dodger fans always say to me, bring it up to me, and they said, he's either going to get DFA'd or maybe he may possibly get moved. Now, Michael Grove to me has a very specific role on this team. And that's when they're getting killed and it's mop-up time. It's Michael Grove time.
Which is such a bummer because he's part of that class of like Michael Grove, Emmett Sheehan. Well, actually, he jumped pretty quickly up. Gavin Stone, Bobby Miller. They all kind of came up at about the same time. Landon Knack, and it's just a bummer that like you see the different paths that some of them have taken, and it's like, you don't want him to be the mop-up guy.
But you need it. You need it. Honeywell was that guy, and he embraced that role.
I would love to see him back.
Honeywell embraced that role, and he went full, Kenny Powders, on us. Look, another and again, these are, when I say option, these are, options for DFA or they're getting moved. Edgardo Enriquez. I know he's a young kid. I know he's young, and he didn't have an opportunity. Really, it was a very brief opportunity to see what he
pitched in 3 regular season games for 3 and a third innings, and then 3 postseason games for 5 innings. I believe he had a little bit of a rocky start, but kind of brought it back.
Yeah, I mean, he's younger than Michael Grove, so that's why I think maybe Michael Grove is maybe more of a candidate than Edgardo. But of the names that we're going through right now, I think maybe Edgardo is, because other than that, Kyle Hurt is hurt, so I don't think we have to worry about that. Landon Knack. Look, Landon Knack showed his value to this team last year, so he's definitely in the Dodgers' plans. Michael Kopech is in the Dodgers' plans. Dustin May, I think this is a huge year for Dustin May. I think Dustin May is in the Dodgers' plans, but he is a total. I don't know what to expect from Dustin May this year.
But again, I mean, people don't have to do anything, but like, give the guy grace. When he comes back, it's been what, a year and a half?
Yeah.
Since he went down. So it's going to be, I mean, who knows? Maybe he proves us all wrong and bounces back immediately, but there could be some, some potential downtime in that respect. And then you've also got Bobby Miller that we need to see, can he bounce back?
Exactly. Bobby Miller, he just there was video that, I don't know if you saw this video, that Shohei was throwing at some high school. Bobby Miller was throwing at that same high school. So I firmly believe that Bobby Miller was, I mean, we know he was pitching hurt last year. That knee.
Many of them have been pitching hurt at one point or another.
So I would love to see if Bobby Miller if Bobby Miller is healthy and we see the Bobby Miller this year that we saw the year prior to last year,
Bobby Miller and Dustin May were my wild cards right now because I just like kind of want
tho-
to see how they do. Not
yeah,
wild cards in the like a trading sense. I just mean like I want to see how they come back this year.
yeah, and I feel like Evan Phillips, I think is part of this bullpen. I am curious to see that injury that he had in the World Series, if that's lingering or if he is completely over it. You mentioned River Ryan. River Ryan is hurt. Emmett Sheehan, I believe they are expecting him maybe in the middle of the season.
Depending, didn't he have Tommy John?
Yeah, so I don't
So I
think.
mean that's anywhere from a year and a half to like 18 or more months. Like 8, no, that would be the same thing.
Yeah, so I think.
Sorry, long day. I'm like 18, year and a half, same thing. 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah, so I mean, so let's put him in the injury category. Blake Snell is in the plans. Gavin Stone is injured. Blake Trinan is in the plans. He's in the bullpen. Vesey is in the bullpen. Justin Robleski is hurt. And then we got Yamamoto. So when you look at the pitching side of the 40-man roster, Amie, you have a lot of injuries there. So,
and at some point we get the unicorn back. Not initially, but at some point.
well, Dave Roberts recently came out and said that probably we're looking at May. That would be the earliest that Ohtani would pitch.
That's realistic. Dude just had surgery. Like, what do you?
Yeah, I think they're going to be very conservative because it was very telling that Roberts said they want him available for the postseason to pitch. So if that's the case, I think they're perfectly fine with him even pitching after the All-Star break. And
I think with all the moves that we're making at this point, Kershaw, we all know he can sign later once all those corresponding moves can be made. So I don't think that's really an urgent need right now. I would like to see how the Roki Sasaki thing shakes out, who he ends up picking, if he does that right on January 15th, if he's already got it in mind, we're just waiting for that announcement. I would also like to see Kike Hernandez just to give us some more depth. Those are the two players that I would like to see added to the team at this point, and then potentially a reliever if we can get somebody or if we trade for someone.
well, I mean, those moves, as I said, it's all going to be timing wise, when they sign them and when they can start moving people to the 60-day, because there are clearly a lot of options on the pitching side to move people off of the 40-man roster because of all the injuries. So there are options on the pitching side if they want to make a move on the pitching side.
It just depends on timing. You got
Exactly.
Sasaki making, and we don't know that it's the Dodgers. Handshake, chisme aside, we don't know when that's going to be, but anytime after January 15th, that announcement can be made. Kike has already made it known he wants to be a Dodger again. He wants to stay in LA. So, he's already showed his hand at that point. It's really up to the front office if they want to, make that offer and then any corresponding moves that might be needed.
I would just hate for the Kike situation to end up being like how it was last year, where Kike had to call the Dodgers and basically said, "Hey, are you guys making me an offer? Because if not, I'm going to take this because the season's about to start and I need a job."
But if he needs to advocate for himself that way, and that's what gets the ball rolling, I mean, that everybody's juggling a bunch of balls at this point. The front office trying to make all of these corresponding moves, timing wise, have that happen. Players juggling different offers that they might be getting, where I want to go versus what's being offered. So it's very fraught, especially with spring training getting closer. But hopefully, like we saw last year, hopefully everything does work out in, the way it needs to.
Before we move on to this, I just want to bring it full circle with the other option. Like I said, I believe they've been working on trying to get Chris Taylor off this roster this whole offseason, and maybe there are no takers. They find no value in Chris Taylor. There is also, and the Dodgers have had a history of doing this, they could just eat his contract.
And that crossed my mind. Like, do you eat his contract and just DFA him, cut ties? Or, you've also got a logjam at catcher, like at that position, because you've got Smith, who's signed for 9 more years. You've got Barnes, who they just picked up his option. You've got Fiducia, who was up a couple times last year. And you've got Dalton waiting in the wings that we're hearing, rumor mill wise, that he's going to come up this year. We got 4 catchers, and you just DFA'd Carthaya.
And that's another thing that you just brought up right now, Amie. We know how they feel about Dalton Rushing. We know what they've been doing in the minor league system to try to find a position for him. Dalton Rushing is not on the 40-man roster. So if you
Right.
are serious about bringing him up, that's another corresponding move. So that's why I wanted to do this exercise and really take a look at the 40-man roster to see what moves the Dodgers can make. And because of the number of injuries on the pitching side, again, there's no rush for Dalton Rushing, no pun intended, for Dalton Rushing right now. But eventually, we have to keep into an account he's not on the 40-man roster. So if the Dodgers, like, if he has a monster spring, if he's killing it, and everybody's just like, you got to get this guy up on the Major League Ball Club because he doesn't benefit from being in the minors anymore, they have to make room for him on the 40-man roster. So,
but they've also got time for that too, for some of those moves, and like we've already said, pitching, you're going to free up a lot of spots when a lot of these guys move to the injured list that aren't coming back anytime soon. At that point, you've got a little bit more wiggle room, especially as you start to see how people play in spring training and, potentially bring people up. So
absolutely,
it's not like he's banished to the, AAA forever. He'll, if he's going to make his debut, they'll bring him up.
So last week, Teoscar Hernandez had his press conference. Amie, your takeaways from his presser?
It was just nice to see him, official, coming back. He sat down with Brandon Gomes and Dave Roberts in what we're seeing. I think it's one of the club, not the clubhouses, but obviously because the stadium is under construction, they're holding their pressers in different areas at this point. So they're doing it in oh my God, why can I not think of which bar that is? It's the one on reserve or the press box level.
Oh, the Diamond Club. Is that the Diamond Club's behind home plate?
I think so. Yeah. It's the one that I can't think of, but
I know what you're talking about.
Yes. Hopefully everybody else does in our coded language. But one of the things that he did say, aside from like Brandon Gomes talking about his infectious smile and his attitude that he brings to the clubhouse, was the quote that is kind of floating around social media that Teoscar said, "I was going to do everything in my power to come back. For me, money wasn't an issue. I could have gotten 5 or 6 more mil from other teams, but if you put me in a place where I had to decide, I would decide to come back because of the way this organization is, the way that they treat, family, the way that they treat players." And I think that's just a testament again to the clubhouse and what this team creates, the front office, the culture that they are growing here. Players want to be here. So for as much as people want to hate the Dodgers, they've got a bullseye on their back or they're the villains, players want to be here. He could have made few more mil, but he ended up staying here because this is what he wanted. This is where his family wanted to be. And he had just pointed out that the organization thinks differently, and they were somebody who actually, had confidence in him, had trust in him. And he didn't really get that anywhere else. So I think that speaks volumes to this team, and it's nice to have him back officially.
To me, the biggest takeaway from that, well, there's a couple of takeaways. Obviously, you could just see how happy he was that it finally got done and he was back.
Fanaticos!
and to get back as a Dodger. But it's what Gomes said, and that he's going to right field. And for me, look, I'm not going to say that Teoscar drank, that Teoscar is bad defensively. But for me, moving him to right field is just a reminder to me. Mookie was he's a Gold Glover out in the outfield, and moving Mookie into the infield, I do believe, hurts your outfield. Now,
it does. But if Mookie,
at least defensively,
but if you can't have him out there without creating injury, because that's part of the reason that Mookie wants to come in, it doesn't matter. You could want Mookie out there all day long. He is a Gold Glove right fielder, but he can't play out there in a healthy way anymore. So that ship has sailed.
Yeah, so they're going to lose. They're going to lose something defensively, but I was curious to see if they were maybe going to put Conforto out there in right field and keep Teoscar in left for at least continuity because he played in left last year. I know a lot of people say, well, right field is Teoscar's natural position, Juan.
And he played in right last year too. He played in both.
Yeah. So look, things are shaping up. It's just as much as people want to downplay defense, I do feel it does play a role, and it is important. But yeah, he was not only was he ecstatic to be back, but I think a lot of fans were very happy because very quickly that guy he made his mark here in Los Angeles, and there are a lot of people that were fans of Teoscar Hernandez.
Like everybody said, it felt like he's been there for more than a year. It feels like he's been here for years, and we just had him for that 1 year. He did get asked about the World Series run. Obviously, media was there asking him questions after they did the presser. But I did like we've heard this from the team before. Hey, what's happened in the past is in the past. Even though they just had a stellar year, they won the World Series. It just shows that the team has already shifted focus and they are looking forward at 2025. It's a clean slate, and they're going to go forward and focus on, okay, here's our end goal. Let's try to make it to October again. It doesn't matter what we did last year, even though it was amazing.
Look, I love their approach. I love how aggressive they are being. They're going all in, and I as a fan, I don't think you can be disappointed, and this is what you want. Anything else on the Teoscar presser before we move on to our next topic?
He did go visit he took a little field trip to go visit his mural. I don't know if you saw some of the
Oh,
pictures
I
on
did see the
social media.
picture. That's a great mural, by the way.
Yeah, it was done by Gustavo Zermeño Jr. So it's a World Series mural with Theo, Mookie, Freeman, Tommy Edman, Shohei Ohtani. Beautiful mural. He's done a couple other ones around LA and in Hermosa Beach. But it's just a good reminder too that our baseball family, we're supposed to go on a mural tour. We need to do that before the season starts.
Well, we definitely this was I guess a tradition that my family and I started when the Dodgers won the World Series in 2020. We got our 2020 World Series gear and we took a picture. I know this may be faux pas now, but we took a picture in front of. Do you remember this, Amie? The Julio Urias had a mural in front of a house.
The Dodgers house?
Yeah, the Dodgers house. Did you see that? And
Mhm.
so we took a picture in front of that. So when they won the World Series, we ordered our gear and we're like, we got to take a picture in front of another mural. And so we haven't, like, we thought maybe the Fernando Valenzuela mural, the one right off of the freeway. I believe the artist is Robert. Is it Robert Vargas who did that Valenzuela
I don't
mural?
remember off the top of my head, but we're supposed to. We've been talking about doing a mural tour with the other baseball families. So if you want to caravan,
Okay, so I was, I was thinking we would do it in front of that one, but I have to say that new one, the one where the Oscar stood, I think I'm liking that one. Here's another quick question for
all
you.
the pictures in front of all the murals.
Exactly. Look, there's a lot of murals of Kobe. I know there's a lot of, and I know this is where we're prisoners of the moment right now. But there seems to be a lot of Dodger murals all over town.
That's
And
why you do a mural tour.
but for me, the fact that there are so many Dodger murals really screams to me that this is a Dodgers town, right? Now, I know people will say,
Are you in
no,
doubt?
Juan. Well, the people will argue it's a Lakers town. It's a
Mm.
it's the Lakers and then it's the Dodgers. The argument there is they're the same. They're the same people that root for the Lakers root for the Dodgers. For
I
it's
think
both.
I think it's also you can compare it, you can not compare it. I think it's whatever your sport of choice is. Like they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, right now it feels, and maybe it's because the Dodgers are going through a moment. They just recently won a championship. It seems like there's more Dodger murals than Lakers murals, but then again, Kobe has a lot of murals, so I think maybe Kobe himself is carrying the Lakers when it comes to murals. But it just feels right now that and it's always swings. There's a pendulum. There was a point where you could really argue it is a Lakers town, that the Lakers were number one.
But why does it have to be one or the other? Like who are these people arguing? Like I guess my question is who cares? If you
I
root
think
for both, then it's both for you. If you root for the Lakers, good for you. It's the Lakers. If you root for the Dodgers, it's your Dodger town.
it's
Like
because of what you said, Amy. I'm a baseball fan, and I want the Dodgers to be the number one team in LA.
and what do you get for that?
My dignity, my pride. Don't you know
Oh,
I'm a
that's
toxico, and I
that's
need
not
to.
working out for you. Do you want
I'm
some
a
iced tea?
yeah. Exactly. Oh, you're mean. You're
Look,
mean. That
John.
hurt.
Look, John. Mira.
All right, next topic. So somebody else won another award, Amy?
Oh my gosh. I told you he bought that new house just so he could put all his awards in it. So Shohei Ohtani won the Sporting News Athlete of the Year. So add another feather in his cap. And then Magic Johnson just got the Presidential Medal of Freedom on Saturday, this past Saturday.
Yeah, and I am so conflicted with Magic Johnson. There's a part of me, Amy, that
Uh-oh.
I would have been really happy about that. But his run as in the Lakers front office just really left a sour taste in my mouth. And I know his role with the Dodgers is just and I could be wrong.
Like warheads?
It could be wrong. I could be wrong. He may be really involved in the Dodgers front office, but for me, I feel he's the guy who goes out there, shakes hands, and kisses babies. I don't. I get he's part owner of the Dodgers, but I still don't really associate Magic Johnson with the Dodgers. Like to me, it's Mark Walter. It's Caston. Those are the guys, right, that I associate with the Dodgers' success.
Even though it's an ownership group?
Yeah, exactly. I just there's just a part of me that it's just left such and he was my favorite basketball player. I loved him. But the way he left the Lakers and just aired out all their business and just made them look so bad, it just left a sour taste in my mouth. And look, it's a great accomplishment, obviously, to win that medal and to get it. So good for him. But all I'm saying is that there was a period of time where I would have been really happy for him, and now I'm like, you know what it is? It's the Amy Cuevas. Who cares? Who cares? You know.
It's it's a good for him. Good for him. He got the highest civilian honor that you can get in the United States. Good for him.
Exactly. Good for you.
I didn't realize you had so much stigma attached to it, but
I'm a toxico, so I'm trying to let it. I'm trying to let.
Self-proclaimed because I did not call you a toxico.
I'm trying to let it go, but it's just every time I see him, I can't help but just think about like what he did to Jeannie Buss, and then later on saying he's like, "Oh, I love Jeannie. Jeannie's my sister." It's like that's how you treat your sister, bro. I mean, you went out there and you literally aired out all their dirty laundry.
I'm glad I missed that whole era in basketball. I'm blinders on to baseball, so I don't have any of that.
I don't think it was a good look. I don't think it was a good look. Speaking of
Thank
drama,
you for sharing.
speaking of family drama, the next story that I want to this is a story that is
you found this, so you go for it.
This is a story that is just developing right now, and I think it's a story that we need to keep an eye on. And this is why I referenced it earlier, and this is what I want to tie it into Roki Sasaki. And this is how I think it affects the Dodgers. So it appears that there is a family squabble going on down in San Diego. There's been a lot. I don't know if you saw this, Amy, but and I don't know if this is accurate. So I know you're very good at fact checking, but it seems like the Marlins of Miami.
Am I your fact training wheels?
Yeah, you are my fact checker. I saw this, and again, this is what I don't know if it's true or not. That the Marlins of Miami have not spent any free agency money yet. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that. No, but I mean, with the topics that we've had over the last couple weeks about people drawing from the CBT, like the pool, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. So So the reason why I was like,
Here,
oh, that's
share
interesting.
your thought process with the rest of us.
Well, the reason why I was like, okay, they haven't spent anything, and you saw what the Serpientes did when they signed Corbin Burns, right?
Mhm.
And so I've been seeing a lot of chatter about the National League West, and in particular, my friends who are Show Pods fans, going, hey, the Show Pods need to do something in order to stay competitive right now in this National League West.
I was just asking one of the Padres fans I know at the brewery. I'm like, "Hey, what's your team doing?"
Exactly. It doesn't seem, but and again, they, to be fair, have spent a lot of money in past posts, past off seasons. So they have a lot of their players already, wrapped up. But
Mhm.
so it turns out that perhaps maybe the reason why they're not spending money down in San Diego is because the widow of the late Padres owner, Showpaw's owner, Peter Seidler, is now suing Peter Seidler's two other brothers for control of the show pots. And I think it's important for a couple of reasons, Amy. One, I already laid out. I think this is a reason maybe why they're not spending money. But when it comes to families or wives, couples suing, I immediately thought of Frank McCourt. Did you not think of that? This is the reason why I sent you this story.
Um, I was just like, "Well, this is interesting." I wanted to see how you were gonna tie it in because
I,
obviously we've seen that they're not spending, and they did under Peter Seidler. They spent quite a bit to be competitive. They built up the fan base as we saw, and then things have kind of slowed down since he passed away. Um, but yeah, go for it.
Look, I feel for Show Pods fan. I do, and I hope I am wrong about this because I think it's important for the Show Pods to stay competitive. I think it's really good for baseball. Look, that's a fabulous ballpark that they have down in San Diego. A lot of people have commented about the playoff environment down at Petco and how great. So I hope that remains. But when I see family members are fighting each other for ownership, seeing what that I lived through the McCourt area, I just feel like it's not going to end well because most times, and I'm sure someone can give me an example of the opposite, but most times when it's there, these kind of squabbles, it's resulted in the team being sold in
Mm.
order to satisfy everybody. So I think this impacts the Dodgers in a couple of ways. If the show pods are not going to spend or they're not going to make moves or they're going to be limited to making moves because of this family drama that's going on, it affects their ability to compete. And in particular, to compete to assign a guy by the name of Roki Sasaki, a guy who many people feel the biggest competition to the Dodgers signing Roki Sasaki are the show pods. So if Roki is seeing this and being like, what's going on over there? For me, this just screams instability in the organization. And if you are a young kid starting off your major league career, do you want to go to an organization that is unstable, or would you rather go to the Dodgers, who are right now running like a well oiled machine?
I think that's a lot of speculation at this point. I mean, to me, I'd be curious how much of this was present in the public prior to today with the news being broken. Like, is that something that gets shared with an agent and his client as they're being posted and shopping offers? I don't know. Like to me, I think it's a very interesting story until we get more like concrete facts versus the like kind of what we got right now. Like we've got they did file she did take legal action and they're, filing the lawsuit, but until we get past the he said she said phase, to me it's like, until we see some substance, I'm more of a let's wait and see. Does that impact him and where he signs, or is he just like, you know what, that's team control no matter what, I still want to play for this team, or do like to your point, do they want to go to the Dodgers? So
I just think the timing of this is horrible. It's horrible for it because she actually went to social media
but do
and
you
addressed the.
think, just to play devil's advocate, if they are trying to woo him over, is that something that they've already disclosed to him? Hey, we do have this going on. We just want to, full disclosure, let you know it's going to come out in the media anyway. So, is it something that they've already discussed with him and his agent, and he's already aware of it, and where everybody else on social media is shocked? And this is where it gets into speculation because we really don't know. And that's
Yeah,
for me where I'm like, I'll wait and see what actually comes out from it, because at this point I could come up with 5 different scenarios. Any of them could be true. All of them could be true. None of them could be true.
yeah, you're right. In the end, we don't know. I would think, part of me would think they didn't discuss this with him because the people who are dealing with him feel that things are moving forward the way they are. This is why I just think this is the timing on this is horrible, because if you are trying to negotiate with them, the last thing you want is for something like this to come out, and then while the negotiation is going, hey, things are great and all, can I ask you, like, what's going on here? Like, why is she, like, is there a chance that she, because and I know it's speculation what you're talking about, I really do, Amy, but Shohei Ohtani in his contract put, if Mark Walters leaves, if Andrew Friedman leaves, then I'm becoming a free agent.
Sure,
So
but
I do
he
feel
has
that,
the leverage to do that after 6 years in the league and being highly coveted. And while Roki Sasaki is highly coveted as somebody, essentially a rookie coming to the MLB, even though he's served his time in the Japanese leagues and he is a star over there in his own right, does he have the same sway in that situation for like Shohei pulled with his contract? And again, speculation. Who knows?
I'm not arguing that that Roki has to put that on there. My argument is this is something that players pay attention to. Like the fact that Shohei put that on there in his contract, and I get it. Shohei had the leverage to be able to do that, but he had the leverage to do that, and he put it in his contract because it's important to him. And I'm sure it's important to him because of what he went through in Anaheim with Artie. He saw an owner who wasn't engaging, who wasn't trying to improve the team, and you compare him to Mark Walter, and you see everything that the Dodgers are doing. I'm sure if I was Shohei, I'd be a little nervous to be like, look, I know this guy's trying to win. If
But does Roki have that kind of leverage?
he doesn't have that kind of leverage, but I do wonder if that would be enough to affect your decision
Potentially. I
to
mean,
be like, you know what?
anything could impact that, though. I mean, they're not even having, like you reported last week, they're not even having players in on these meetings. And I guess for me, that's where, like, he's at the end of the day, he can share his decision of why he chose the team that he ends up choosing, or he can just keep that close to the vest and like, nope, I joined this team and that's all you guys need to know. And I guess in that respect, maybe this makes me just a different perspective. That's his business. Like
No,
whatever reason he chooses.
it totally is his business, but I do feel like this is a story to keep your eye on, because I am very curious to see, and this could get resolved. This could be like, okay, and it won't affect the show pods, which in the end I think would be good. But you're hearing rumors that the show pods, and of course we don't know the validity of this, but that they're looking to trade Luis Arraez to the Yankees.
This
In
is
my
this is the time of year you hate because of all of these rumors.
Right, but if that happens, again, as a Show Pods fan, I would have to be like, "Wait, what are we doing?" Like,
Yeah.
for me, Luis Arraez is an important part of this team in order to compete. So that's why
Especially if they haven't signed anybody else. Yes, I agree.
exactly, and that's why I'm saying it's something to keep an eye on,
For
because
sure.
if they do trade Luis Arraez, then there is, where there's smoke, there's fire, so to speak, to be like, hey, what's going on here? Like, I don't like the reports of that they're looking to trade Dylan Cease. It's like, wait, are you guys looking to trade Dylan Cease to, for prospects, or is this a money thing? Like, you're trying to get, this is stuff that, and I get it. I'm a toxico.
Shh, calm down.
This is this is what happens when you live through the Frank McCourt era, and you try to
Okay.
ignore it because it's like, oh, this has nothing to do with baseball. And then
And
later on you realize, oh, because I was ignoring this, I had no clue what this guy was doing to the team.
I'm not saying ignore it, keep it in your back pocket, but at the end of the day, what do you whether this lawsuit does or doesn't have an implication, like what are you going to do about it? Are you going to stress yourself out? Little dormouse, here, let me give you some mustard for your
I'm
nose.
not stressed. I'm not stressed. You know, Look, would it be obviously the show pod's downfall would benefit the Dodgers?
But nobody, even a rivalry, unless it's Houston, nobody wants that. Everybody wants teams to. No, I can't speak for everybody. Let me take that back. If depending on the level of fan you are of baseball or of a team, you want teams to be competitive because otherwise, what are we doing here? Like, I love that the Dodgers put money into the team, but I also don't want to be so good that we're playing against teams that don't put money into them, and you can tell, and it's like, okay, where's the competition? You want that healthy competition, or at
Absolutely.
least, I mean, unless you're just a fan of winning, which no shade, that's cool, but then you're not really going to have that competitive layer.
Valid points. All right, let's wrap up the show with one last story. Amie, the Golden Globes were last night, and it looks like there were some surprise attendees.
Yeah, so Will Smith and his wife they went to the 82nd annual Golden Globes. So they had their little date night, got all dressed up, got it posted across social media. So I'm sure you were paying attention, film buff that you are, but did you see Will Smith in the audience?
I didn't. I saw what the Dodgers had put out of them
Mhm.
getting ready to go to the Golden Globes and the tux. So I
I just
was
figured you would have been scanning the crowd because I didn't watch
I
it.
did. I looked to see where he was sitting, but then at the same I didn't see him. At the same
Mhm.
time, I don't know why he was there. Do you know why he went to is it just one of those
It,
because I
I think
can?
I think they just wanted to like. uh,
Or did he do like what I did in high school? So in high school,
He went to not slap people.
my senior year in high school, I did not order my yearbook. Because I was an idiot. I don't know why I didn't order my yearbook, right? So then there was another kid in my grade whose name was Juan Ramirez, right?
No.
And he left in the middle of the school year, never came back, but he had ordered a yearbook. So maybe I shouldn't, yeah, maybe I shouldn't tell this story.
You owe otro Juan Ramirez his yearbook.
Maybe he's going to come hunt me down now and say I want my yearbook. But
Yearbooks aren't cheap, sir.
so maybe this is what I'm saying is maybe Will Smith of the Dodgers got Will Smith the actor's invite to go to the Golden Globes because I'm still scratching my head as to why
Well,
Will Smith was at the Golden Globes.
he'll be better behaved.
I guess if you were invited to the Golden Globes, you would go, right? Even if you had no reason to go.
It's not really my cup of tea. I know you would go.
Well, if they showed 11 hours of walking, would you go?
Oh my God, yeah. I've been having Lord of the Rings conversations up the wazoo with people, just
Net alert.
listeners, just chatting with random people. Oh my God, you are missing out. We will convert you. We're gonna
11
lock you.
hours
We're gonna
of
lock you in a
walking.
room under false pretenses, and then like the meme that I sent you, all of a sudden a TV will appear, and we will just be watching Lord of the Rings.
11 hours of walking. Yeah. So, hey, that's one of those things. So this is why Anthony Rendon didn't want to sign with the Dodgers because he wasn't about that Hollywood life. It looks like Will Smith is about that Hollywood life.
Hey, good for him if they had a nice little date night and they got invited. I'm bummed that he didn't bring you as his date. I know you
Well,
would
you
have
know what?
enjoyed it.
I think maybe this is starting to become like a tradition because last year Freddie Freeman and Chelsea Freeman went to the Golden Globes. So
Maybe.
maybe they're just inviting a Dodger every year. So maybe Shohei will be at the Golden Globes next year.
Ooh, he might have a brand new baby. He might not be there.
And maybe Mookie.
Maybe Mookie.
All
Who
right.
knows? Maybe they got multiple invites, and Will Smith's the one that wanted to go.
All right. So
I
2
just
years
think it's cool that if he really wanted to go and his wife wanted to go and they got to enjoy that, like how cool for them.
2 years in a row, Dodgers at the Golden Globes. Let's see what happens next year.
Next year, Juan Ramirez.
I don't know about that, but we'll see. Any other topics before we wrap things up, Amie? Anything else you want to add?
No, I think I'm all baseballed out.
All
Shocking.
right. Shocking. No, okay. So that's going to do it for this episode. For those of you that have been listening to us on the audio portion of the show, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review. Help spread the word about the show. Let people know about Baseball Shangri LA. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. hit that notification button, give us a thumbs up, leave us comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media, on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amie Cuevas. I'm Juan Ramirez. Nos despedimos con un beso. Amie, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.